The sky over NAR June 4 was lavender glass, immense, silent, and utterly unconcerned. From the balcony of the Galactic Coliseum, the audience of dignitaries, tyrants, and starborn nobility watched as the three humans were led through the center of the amphitheater floor. No chains, no guards needed. Just three unarmed earthlings dressed like they'd wandered in from a forgotten dinner party, walking toward the platform where they were to be executed before the eyes of the Empire. The roar of alien languages bounced off the obsidian walls. Hisses, glimmers of acid laughter, the dry bark of reptilian approval. Cameras hovered in the air like flies, transmitting the event across 57 systems. The announcer, a 10-limbed echelon with a voice like falling knives, cleared its throat. "Let history take witness," it boomed, "as we end the farce of Terran defiance." The crowd leaned in. One of the humans stifled a yawn. Clarabelle North, 39 years old and precisely the kind of woman you'd mistake for your favorite aunt at a funeral, wore a high-necked cream blouse and dark gray trousers pressed so neatly they looked starched by God himself. She had soft brown eyes and a voice that smoothed out wrinkles in a conversation. She glanced around at the watching crowd with the mild detachment of someone browsing cheap silverware. Kenneth Dross, tall, bald, and shaped like a stack of firewood in a dress uniform, winked at the closest camera drone and muttered, "Anyone else smell popcorn?" The third, Xiomara Pike, didn't speak at all. She adjusted the cracked band on her wristwatch, head bowed, lips twitching with the hint of a smile that never quite formed. The execution platform was a cruel slab of transparent crystal. Beneath it churned a magnetic field meant to rupture the nervous system. Elegant, sanitary, final. The announcer continued, "These individuals, agents of Earth, stand accused of insubordination, espionage, and insolence against the high order. Their pleas for mercy will not be heard. Their names will not be remembered." Clarabelle raised a hand. 1,000 creatures leaned forward. She adjusted her glove, then smiled. The crowd deflated. Behind the human trio, soldiers of the Crimson Talon stood in formation. Their armor gleamed with planetary metals, their weapons loaded and humming. One of them, a young recruit with purple skin and trembling antennae, leaned to his superior. "Sir, permission to speak." "Denied," the captain hissed. "But she's smiling." Clarabelle turned just enough to meet the young soldier's eye. Her smile deepened warmly, almost maternally. That's when the broadcast delay began. 2 seconds of static. Unusual, but not alarming. The announcer clicked a mandible and waved forward the Imperial executioner, an arthropod named Creel who took great pride in his symmetry and blade precision. Creel stepped forward, raising the neural spike. The humans knelt as one, heads bowed in mock reverence. It was Dross who spoke this time. "Before you do this," he said, tone casual, "do you mind if we say something for the record?" The crowd roared with laughter. The announcer waved a claw dismissively. "Let the mammals squeal." Dross cleared his throat, turned to Clarabelle. "You want this one north?" Clarabelle rose back to her feet. "Thank you, Ken." She brushed a speck of dust from her cuff. "I just have a few words." Cameras pivoted. "We came in peace," she said, calm as tea steam. "We offer trade, cultural exchange, mutual respect. You responded with threats, with theft, with the murder of our envoys." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Get on with it." Clarabelle didn't flinch. "We studied you, observed your customs. We even brought wine." At that, Dross pulled out a hip flask. He offered it to Creel, who recoiled. Xiomara, still silent, placed something on the edge of the platform. A tiny glass cube, glowing faintly blue. No one noticed. Clarabelle went on. "When the sword falls, and it will, you will believe you've won. You will believe we were weak, powerless, predictable. And we will let you believe that just long enough." Another pause. "Because the truth is, we came here for the funeral." The crowd quieted. "Whose funeral?" the announcer asked. Clarabelle turned to it, head tilting slightly. "Yours." Dross raised a hand. "Can I say it now?" Clarabelle nodded. He grinned. Cue curtain. Creel brought the spike down toward Clarabelle's skull. Nothing touched her. Instead, the lights dimmed. The blade froze midair. A low hum vibrated through the crystal beneath them, a sound like a planet exhaling. The cube Siomara, placed, blinked once, then twice. Then the entire amphitheater blacked out. Total silence. All broadcasts went dead. Throughout the Empire's networks, a single image replaced every channel. 3 humans standing in the dark, lit only by the soft, eerie pulse of an unfamiliar energy. Then a message appeared. You activated Sentinel Protocol. Please remain calm while your empire is reorganized. And as the world watched, terrified and uncertain, Clarabelle's voice echoed one last time, soft, soothing, and deadly. See you in 5. Grand Strategos Vrock of the Trigalactic Empire stared at the hollowed execution feed, his gills pulsing with slow disbelief. The last known image, 3 Terrans surrounded in darkness, glowing like a slow-breathing star, looped on the central holoscreen above his command dais. Silence clung to the war chamber like wet wool. Reboot the transmission, Vrock snarled, tusks twitching. Now, the comms technician, a 4-eyed fexerling named Zook, adjusted the neural relay nodes with trembling claws. Sir, I've rerouted through 6 backup arrays. There's no signal, not even background radiation. Vrock's claws clicked against the railing. They were standing on our capital stage under our beam grid. Find them. The room shifted with invisible tension. Dozens of alien officers watched the malfunction spiral. No one speaking too loudly. No one exhaling too hard. The humans had vanished mid-execution, an impossibility, a violation of every imperial safeguard. And the message they left behind impossible, too. Across the Empire's inner core, similar silences were falling like dominoes. On Arcturian Relay Base Theta, 6 separate species stared at static, wondering if they'd witnessed sabotage or sorcery. In orbit over Dazur Prime, the Empire's 6th Fleet sent a ping request to Earth-based channels. They received, in reply, a single audio loop. You never really understood the species that smiles during autopsies. At Central Data Core Loranthus, deep within the Empire's databanks, a young analyst named Tlash leaned closer to his console, antennae stiff with unease. He'd reviewed the contents of the Terran prisoner's confiscated effects. Nothing notable until now. A tea sachet, a fountain pen with no ink, a folded paper crane, and a small, marked data chip labeled "Do not open under any circumstances" in deliberately childish handwriting. He opened it. The screen crackled, then burst into colorless static. Then, "Welcome to Kansas.exe." An ancient desktop interface blinked awake. A stick figure of a farmer danced across the screen. Tlash frowned. "What is Kansas?" A text window opened. "Hi there. Looks like you triggered an extinction-level protocol." Oopsie. The interface froze. Then the entire system room did. Behind him, lights flickered as 20% of Loranthus's processing banks collapsed. Tlash did not scream. He just whispered, "They brought a virus inside a tea bag." Across the Empire, space traffic halted. Long-range communications frayed. Merchant networks disconnected. One by one, lights in the great spine of Imperial infrastructure blinked out, as if snuffed by an unseen hand. And Earth. Earth said nothing. No retaliation. No threats. No official denouncement. Just nothing. Vrock's comms technician finally looked up. "Sir, the humans didn't just disappear. They pulled every trace of themselves with them. Embassy records, trader packs, even food import logs. It's like they were never here." Vrock's top lip curled. "They're mammals. Flesh. Fragile. Explain this." Zook dared a glance. "What if they were never here to negotiate, sir? What if they came to listen?" On a cold moon orbiting Rix, a janitorial unit powered up in a storage closet. It had 2 settings, broom and war. Within 17 seconds, it had armed itself, transmitted a 6-second pulse, and self-destructed with precision, so surgical the stations, sensors, failed to register it had ever existed. But the pulse traveled into a dormant array no one remembered approving. 7 human sleeper agents, posing as exobiologists, engineers, and even an entertainment holographer, received the same simple message on neural implants they'd carried for decades. Silence confirmed. Begin protocol. In a modest care facility on Earth, 5 elderly women sat in a knitting circle beneath a mural of distant galaxies. They weren't technically alive, not in the cellular sense. Not anymore. "Clarabelle's timing is perfect," muttered the one in the cherry blouse. She flicked a switch hidden in her lap blanket. One by one, her companions reached into their knitting bags and pulled out items no facility was equipped to detect. An ancient pager, a silver lighter, a velvet jewelry box, and a hard candy tin with 4 blinking red lights. They pressed them all at once. Earth's skies remained blue, but in orbit, hundreds of cloaked Terran ships blinked online, silent, sleek, coiled like wire springs waiting for scissors. None of them moved. Not yet. Vrock stood at the center of the command floor, listening as the Empire cracked around him. Not through brute force, but through vacuum, through absence, through the unraveling of assumptions. "I want warships en route to Earth," he barked. The navigation officer blinked. "Which Earth?" Vrock turned slowly. "What?" "We're receiving conflicting spatial coordinates. 9 Earths. All verified. All emitting identical grav signatures. All appearing to exist simultaneously. That's not possible." Neither was what just happened. On Darnax 3, where the Empire's largest shipyard hung over a molten sea, all human-made cargo vessels disappeared simultaneously from dock registries. Physical vessels remained, empty, abandoned mid-refueling, lunch half-eaten on the consoles. But the people? Gone. In the cafeteria, a note taped to a thermos read, "Gone to get our knife back. Don't touch the box." Next to it sat a sealed crate. Inside it, a playing card. The King of Spades, cut in half. The message was obvious. "We've already been here." Back on NAR June 4, the Grand Hall filled again, though no one laughed now. A new gathering of leaders and functionaries watched replays of the execution over and over, parsing the humans' final expressions, the faint glimmer of something placed on the stage. They zoomed. They analyzed. They calculated energy signatures. None made sense. CO Mara Pike had planted something, but not a weapon. No detonation. Just a silence bomb. One that had sucked all heat from the galactic ego. "Are we under attack?" asked the viceroy of the Silica tribes, her voice tight and low. "No," Vrock said finally. "We're being audited." The room froze again. "What do you mean?" Vrock exhaled slowly. "They're not fighting us. Not yet. They're watching, calculating, removing our weapons before we realize we're disarmed." Flash entered the hall, blinking hard. "I've compiled what little Earth history we retained," he said, his crystalline tone flat with horror. "There are patterns, cycles, sudden peace before total destruction. They once dropped fire from the sky to end a 2-week war. They once trained 6-year-olds to survive jungle combat." "That's fiction," someone whispered. "No," Flash replied. "That was junior camp." He handed Vrock a data slate. And this was a peace delegation. The slate showed a time-lapsed map of Terran ambassador movement over the last year. Harmless, diplomatic, until layered with energy signatures from cloaked relays hidden in Empire strongholds. Somehow, every embassy had been a listening post. Every teacup, a transmitter. Every book left in alien waiting rooms, a data siphoning anchor. One page, annotated in human script, read, "Find the nest by feeding the hawk." Flash whispered, "I think we just fed them everything." Back in orbit, something began broadcasting. A radio signal, crackling, low, and full of distortion. Then a voice. Male, jovial, American accent. "Hey y'all, guess we should talk." Then, music. Old, grainy. Sinatra. "I've got you under my skin." Vrock looked up. "What is that noise?" Flash stared at the floor. That's how humans announce that diplomacy is over. The signal reached all corners of the Empire. Ships paused. Stations flickered. The galaxy tilted on its axis as a thought began to bloom across species who had once considered Earth a nuisance. What if the humans weren't primitive? What if they were polite on purpose? The song looped, repeating a line over and over. You tried not to let me in. And somewhere, just below known space, in a dark void engineered to mask its own gravitational signature, a Terran fleet opened its eyes. Not with sound, not with weapons, but with silence. The kind that only comes before a verdict. It began not with explosions, but with absence. Across 3 quadrants of the Empire, the lights of power stations flickered, held their breath, and died. Not from external strikes or solar flares, but because entire control sequences had been rewritten in silence. Systems that once required 5 layers of verification now responded to lullabies, human lullabies. And no one knew why. In the old vault of Archive Station Renfell, a hologram flickered on. Clarabelle North stood in front of an ancient lectern, her blouse crisp, her gloved hands resting gently on a steel edge, as if she were preparing to deliver a school lesson. Lesson 1, she said, her voice soft. A diplomat is just a detonator dressed in pearls. You just never know what they're wired to. The feed blinked out. 6 hours earlier, a shuttle the Empire didn't track landed on a forest moon in the Draxerai system. It was shaped like a Terran grain silo and bore no weapons. Clarabelle stepped off first, brushing ash from her sleeve. Pike followed in silence, clutching a briefcase. Dross lagged behind, harmonica in hand. They're going to come looking soon, Pike murmured. Let them, Clarabelle said. We're not hiding. We're preparing the table. The moon was quiet. Trees stretched like skeletal fingers. Under the canopy, they set up a field terminal. The 3 of them moved with patient precision, not like warriors, but like school teachers preparing a room before the bell. They'll expect noise, Dross said. We give them literature instead. No, Clarabelle replied. We give them mirrors. Aboard the flagship Dominion Fong, Grand Strategos Vrock stood over a tactical map rapidly populating with anomalies. Ships that weren't supposed to be there. Human vessels, yes. But none matched Earth's recorded military designs. One looked like a hospital barge. Another broadcast a 1950s soap opera on loop. A third seemed to be leaking books. The comms officer grimaced. Sir, they're transmitting recipes. Recipes. From something called the Midwest Mom Files. Vrock exhaled slowly. They're mocking us. No, sir, said Clash, stepping forward from the data pit, crystalline limbs glittering. They're communicating. They're insulting. Clash tilted his head. With respect, sir, we've made the mistake of assuming that humans choose confrontation the way we do. They don't. They wrap it. They paint it. They serve it on porcelain plates with complimentary bread. And then they wait for you to compliment the flavor while your insides melt. The signal changed again. This time, it was Clarabelle. She appeared on every public feed, standing beneath a battered Terran flag hung against a tree trunk. You killed our ambassadors, she said plainly. We offered you friendship. You chose theater. So we built a better stage. Her gaze was calm, kind, clinical. Today, we are not declaring war. That would imply we see you as equals. Gasps rippled through multiple council chambers. We are, instead, notifying you that the experiment is over. You poked. We're recorded. You laughed. We learned. And now you're going to see what polite monsters do when given the floor. Dross leaned into frame, grinning. Bring snacks. This one's a double feature. Clarabelle continued. There will be no sieges. No battles. Only lessons. You may wish to take notes. Then she disappeared. In the capital, the Prime Archivist, a slug-like entity who had lived through 5 regime changes, collapsed in horror. They waited. All this time they waited. What for? Someone asked. For the curtain. Dross's harmonica played across the Empire's secured frequencies. A slow, sad tune. Something about it made people forget their tongues. Back on the moon, Clarabelle sat on a tree stump, hands folded. Do you think they understand yet? Pike asked, still not opening her briefcase. No, but they're beginning to feel it. Above them, 10 Terran ships decloaked. Each bore the same symbol, a quill crossed with a blade. The quiet sentence. An Earth division never acknowledged in public files. Not Navy. Not Black Ops. Just unspoken. They'll respond soon, Clarabelle said. Panic makes the proud predictable. She was right. Within hours, Vrock had ordered preemptive strikes on 3 abandoned Terran embassies. Missiles hit empty chairs, scattered teacups. Open books still turned to chapters titled, What to Expect When You're Expecting Consequences. On one scorched table, the only remaining object was a framed photo of a young human girl in a red dress, holding hands with an alien child from the Empire's elite caste. The caption, Friendship Day, 2237. Vrock struck it from records. Too late. More signals arrived. On colonies once held tightly by the Empire's grip, human ships broadcast a new doctrine. Silence followed by function. They didn't conquer. They simply replaced. Their trade routes were cleaner. Their medicine faster. Their agreements shorter and somehow binding in ways even the Empire's lawyers couldn't unwind. Wherever the Empire had pushed humans, the humans hadn't resisted. They'd absorbed. Vrock knew what it meant. He just couldn't accept it. They never brought diplomats to us, he said to Clash. They brought anchors. Clash nodded, waited in civility, but ready to pull. The final blow wasn't a missile. It was a parade. On the Empire's most televised channel, footage appeared of Clarabelle standing before a crowd of Empire citizens, alien refugees, war orphans, forgotten species. They were cheering, waving Terran flags. Clarabelle raised a glass. To good governance, she said. To reason. To better deals, better tea, and the great human tradition of smiling while loading the cannon. Dross leaned over, raising his glass too. You always toast before the thunder. Pike finally opened the briefcase. It contained a single switch. Clarabelle nodded. Now I believe it's time we were properly introduced. And somewhere, far above, inside the orbit of the Empire's central command, the silent ships began to move. Not with fire, not with sirens, but with dignity. A quiet formation, a steady hum, and a new signal. Protocol activated. Await confirmation of Empire's surrender or funeral arrangements. It didn't happen all at once. Empires never fall like towers. No, they disintegrate like ancient tapestries, thread by thread, unraveling under the weight of silence. The first to kneel wasn't Vrock. It was the High Matron of the Veiled Choir, an Empire ally for centuries, who called an emergency council at her lunar chapel and, with shaking limbs, folded the treaty with the Trigalactic Empire into ash. I have no quarrel with the ones who smile while bleeding, she whispered, placing the ashes in a ceremonial bowl. I will not war against people who study you like recipes and remember every ingredient you forget. Elsewhere, on a floating tribunal above the mineral world of Garas, a delegation of insectoid judges received a communique in a language they didn't understand. They fed it into their translator, expecting a threat. What they got instead was a poem. You called them animals, so they watched you dine. You called them small, so they studied spines. You killed their mouths. Now they speak in kind. The poem had no signature, just a footnote, T at 5. Grand Strategos Vrock had barely slept. His claws cracked against the railing of the Dominion Fong's bridge as updated threat maps poured in like a tide. Human vessels, strange, elegant, unaccounted, were now visible above 57 planets. None of them fired. None even spoke. They simply hovered, present and polite, like gentlemen waiting for the dinner bell. They want us to strike, Vrock growled. No, Clash corrected softly from his data console. They want us to decide. The moment we fire, we write the ending ourselves. Vrock turned, voice low and raw. What kind of monster does this without firing a shot? The kind that memorizes your family tree before shaking your hand, Clash replied. In the shadow of the galactic rim, in a facility long since erased from Imperial records, Clarabelle North stood beneath a light too soft to be artificial. Around her, data flowed in lines of pure white over walls shaped like honeycomb. Maps, signals, countdowns, lives. Xiomara Pike adjusted the strap of her briefcase. The silence is holding. Clarabelle nodded, eyes fixed on the map. It always does, until it teaches. Dross leaned in, still chewing a toothpick. How long do you give them before one of them flinches? They've already flinched, Clarabelle said gently. They just don't know which part of the body it came from. She stepped forward and tapped a single icon. Across dozens of empire systems, the artificial suns dimmed by 6%. Crops paused in their chemical ripening. No explosions, just a breath withheld. Every Terran ship in orbit began transmitting the same phrase in 100 different languages. We are not here to conquer. We are here to return the favor. That was the moment Vrock called the emergency conclave. Every living commander, regent, warlord, and dignitary summoned to the capital's great pantheon. The room buzzed with languages older than fire, dripping in rank and teeth. Vrock stood at the center, staring into the chaos. They are mocking us, a stone-skinned general hissed. They are surrounding us, muttered a feathered monarch. They have done nothing, a reptilian regent barked. No war declared, no weapon drawn, just presence. That is their war, Tlash said quietly from the shadows. He stepped into the light. We don't know how to fight it, because we don't know when they started it. He held up a single Terran document, recovered from a burned embassy. The title, Operation Scarecrow, Seeding the Empire. Vrock read it in silence. Clarabelle's name was on the first page. So was Dross and Pike. The signatures dated 19 years prior to their first official contact. You mean they? Vrock's voice cracked. They've been watching, Tlash said. Planting things. Ideas. Questions. Doubts. Comfort. Comfort, someone sneered. Tlash turned. What better way to take a throne than to make the people comfortable enough to forget who sat on it? In that moment, every leader in the room realized that the humans had not come to negotiate. They had come to replace. A signal chimed. On every screen across the empire, Clarabelle's face returned, framed by nothing but gray sky and wind. Forgive the interruption, she said warmly. I know many of you have busy afternoons, but I thought it time we had a proper talk. She folded her gloved hands. You killed 3 of us publicly. Well, tried to. We let you think that, because we needed you to show your face in the mirror. You obliged. No one in the great pantheon spoke. Clarabelle continued. We're not going to bomb you. That's crass. We're not going to invade. That's predictable. We are, instead, going to leave. Gasps. And confusion. Leave. Vrock snarled at the screen. Yes, Clarabelle said, as if hearing him. And you'll find in our absence that the holes we filled can't be patched. Our medical aids? Gone. Your food shipments from Terran zones? Derailed. Your legal counsel, your trade negotiations, your social programming assistance? Removed. Not sabotaged. Not erased. Just withheld. She leaned forward. And when your people ask why the Empire suddenly feels colder, slower, weaker, you'll have to explain to them that you had us, and you threw us away. Her smile vanished. We are not your guests. We are the weather system you never bothered to study. The screen went black, and then the great pantheon went dark with it. Seconds later, the gravity failed, just for 4 heartbeats. Then it snapped back. Every system, every world, every station, every satellite experienced it. Not enough to kill, not enough to damage, just enough to humiliate. Signal interference, whispered the captain of the Dominion Fong. No, Vrock said, choking on dry air. That was a handshake. The Empire was kneeling already. Most of them didn't even know it. On the outer rim, hundreds of species formerly bound to the Empire declared neutrality. One world transmitted a single sentence. We are returning to Terran custody. It is Kinder. In the war nest of Margic Prime, the warrior queens held a blood council. At the end of it, they burned every image of their Empire allies and adopted an earth banner made of stitched cloth and warmth. On a transport vessel between refugee zones, a child asked his father, "What are humans?" The father, an old fleet gunner, answered, "They're bedtime stories that stayed up too late." Meanwhile, in a room with no locks, Clarabelle stood beneath a twilight sky. The other 2 waited quietly. Pike said, "They'll either surrender, or they'll beg." "They'll do both," Clarabelle said softly. Because that's how it ends, for those who believe manners mean weakness. Dross, resting on a tree stump, nodded toward the small holoscreen lighting up again. A message. From Vrock. The strategos looked smaller now. His tusks had dulled. The lines near his eyes no longer came from pride, but from loss. "What do you want?" he asked. Clarabelle took her time. Then she spoke. "An apology." Vrock blinked. "You want a gesture?" "No," she said. "An understanding." "Say it out loud." "Not for us. For yourselves." Silence. Vrock looked away. Clash placed a gentle claw on his arm. And Vrock said the words. "We underestimated you." Clarabelle nodded, then turned off the screen. "I believe," she said to Pike, "that completes the lesson." Pike exhaled. "And the trap?" "Already sprung," Clarabelle said, watching the sky grow brighter. They just didn't hear it snap shut. Above them, the Earth fleet began to retreat. Not in fear, but in quiet, perfect symmetry. In a bunker beneath the core of NAR June 4, a young alien cadet found a letter. It was dated 15 years before the war began. To the future inheritors of the Empire. You will not be destroyed by flame, nor drowned by blaster. You will be replaced at the dinner table. You will speak Terran before you even notice. You will crave their agreements. You will emulate their holidays. And when the mirror is clear and the crown falls off your head, you will smile and wonder how you ever ruled without them. You won't. That's the trick. Sincerely, Clarabelle North, Civil Affairs Division, Earth. And far across the stars, a new planet lit up on long-range maps. It wasn't named. Not yet. But its capital had already been designed. By humans. Soft music played on every frequency. Sinatra again. And Clarabelle's voice, gentle, final. "We warned you not to kill the librarians.